Hi, my name's Giles Hogben. I'm a security expert at ENISA, the European Network and Information Security Agency. I'm a co-author of a paper about privacy in European electronic ID cards. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that paper and hopefully interest you in downloading it to have a look at it in more detail. Electronic ID cards are being rolled out in many countries in Europe. At ENISA, we set out to answer the question of what does this mean for the privacy of European citizens? This is a very important question for many Europeans. Therefore, it's also a very important question for European governments because ID card schemes cannot succeed if they're not accepted by European citizens. So, first of all, what data is actually stored on electronic ID cards? Well, you have ordinary data like first name, last name, date of birth, and then you have more interesting things like biometrics, fingerprints, facial images, and so forth. Unique identifiers are used in government databases to identify people. They may also be used in chat rooms, on transportation systems, and so forth. And the information used on each of these occasions can be linked together by that unique identifier. An interesting example is the London transportation system. The cards used in this system have actually been used as evidence in divorce courts because they allow the courts to link together the different locations that a person has been in, just using that unique identifier. So the unique identifier is not just a number, it's a gateway to your personal information. So, bearing in mind the importance of protecting data on electronic ID cards, ENISA wanted to find out how well we're doing in Europe in protecting that data. We did this in two stages. The first stage was to create a list of all possible privacy features. And this is a kind of a benchmark against which we then measured how the actual existing specifications are doing against that list. So in other words, we created an ideal set of privacy features, and then we mapped the European specifications against that list. In the next part of the video, I'd like to go through a few examples from the list of privacy features that we identified. Access control. The simplest form of access control is when the cardholder has to type in a PIN number to access the data. This protects the data against unauthorized access, for example if the card is stolen, but it doesn't protect against unauthorized service providers accessing the card. In the second stage, you can also ask any service provider attempting to access the data to identify themselves using, for example, a public key certificate. Another important technique we identified addresses the problems with unique identifiers used in cards. As I already mentioned, if the same unique ID number is used on different occasions, it can reveal information by linking together the data used in different contexts. For example, if the same unique identifier is used in two different chat rooms, it could be used to link together two different online identities. One way of addressing this is for the card to issue different identifiers every time it's used. In practice, however, this is rather difficult to achieve, mainly because of issues in revoking the card. So many cards have achieved a compromise by dividing the service providers accessing the card into different groups. Each group receives a different identifier from the card. This then makes it impossible to link together data disclosed to each group. Another important area that we think needs to be addressed is the use of electronic signatures in eID cards. Many cards offer the facility to sign documents using the card. But what we found is that they also tend to use this electronic signing facility to actually prove who the user is. When you sign a document, you also prove who you are because your signature is unique to you. So signatures can be used to authenticate or prove the identity of the user. And we found that many ID card schemes are actually using electronic signatures to prove the identity of the user. Now this is actually revealing more information than needs to be revealed. You can compare it, for example, to showing your passport and actually leaving a signed copy of your passport that can then be used to prove that you've authenticated yourself. So you're actually, by leaving a signed copy of the information, you're actually revealing more than necessary. When we reviewed the existing ID card specifications, we found that actually only one country was separating between the electronic signature and the authentication functions of the card. Our aim was to show the best possible protection we can aim for and how far we've got in Europe in achieving that. In brief, there were big differences across Europe in the implementation of privacy features. If you'd like to see a complete list of possible privacy features and how far they've been implemented in Europe, please visit our website and download our paper from this address.